Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, today joined by Jake and Nolan. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the situation in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers, reportedly the third option, and what that could mean for their future this year. In this segment, we turn our attention back to the hardwood. We talked about the NBA Finals in segment 1, but here we have to talk about the New York Knicks, one of the most high-profile coaching searches there has been in a very long time, has a new favorite. Last time we talked, it seemed like Michael Malone was going to go number one, or was going to be the new head coach, the odds-on favorite, but that has changed. He slipped all the way down to third. We'll talk about who passed him and what's changed overall. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much sticking around, talking some sports with us here on a beautiful Tuesday, June 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into what's going on here with the Knicks, specifically the buzz around Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd has now become the odds-on favorite to be the next head coach of the Knicks. When we talked about this, when it first came out, Michael Malone, who's dropped to third behind Johnny Bryant and Jason Kidd there, was the odds-on favorite, but those are the only three guys that aren't incredibly long shot odds. We talked about a couple other guys that have since dropped out of the race. Taylor Jenkins has climbed a little bit. Steve Nash and guys like Rajon Rondo are on here, as well as Mark Jackson. There's a couple crazy names on this list right here, but it seems to be favoring a three-horse race between Jason Kidd, Johnny Bryant, and Michael Malone. I'll start with you here, Jake, on this one. Out of those three names, or maybe a wild card name, what are you hearing? What do you think is going on in this head coaching search for the New York Knicks?
Give Rajon Rondo a chance now. Come on, man. No. But seriously, though, I think Jason Kidd, yeah, we have heard a lot of his name the past few days, though, according to The Athletic, they're saying that Dallas really is expecting Jason Kidd to be their head coach next year. Still has 2 years left on his deal there as the head coach of the Mavericks. So I think that's going to be something to kind of monitor with the Jason Kidd situation, is the fact that he's still under contract. Could he get traded again as a coach? That'd be kind of cool. Getting traded twice as a head coach would be kind of an interesting situation there. But from an on-court perspective, I think you want to look at a Jason Kidd type. I'm not really a fan of the Mike Malone conversation. That just never really kind of made sense to me. A guy that his tendencies are really similar to Tom Thibodeau, and just how they kind of dig down and are stuck to their ways doesn't kind of seem like that's what New York is going to want here. It's going to be interesting, though, I think, what direction they kind of go. I think they're going to try to take a swing here at Jason Kidd. It's the New York Knicks. Jason Kidd is the biggest name out there, a guy that would make a lot of sense for them. So I would not be surprised at all to see them take a swing at Jason Kidd. I just think some of the logistics there might be a little tricky to kind of deal with.
Yeah, I think Jason Kidd, you kind of hit the nail on the head right there, why it's such an interesting conversation. A guy who is currently the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. I understand New York is a big market, but is it that much better of a situation in New York than it is in Dallas? I understand the whole Luka trade probably got under his skin, and he probably wants out of Dallas, but you're getting Cooper Flagg in. You have, if everyone can stay healthy, Anthony Davis. You'll get Kyrie back by the time the playoffs come around. You'll have Klay Thompson. You have Cooper Flagg now on that team. It's a promising roster over there, and one that is probably comparable, if not better, than the Knicks. I know the West is a mess. Trading for a coach just feels kind of desperate. And Jason Kidd, I also don't think is that great of a head coach, honestly. We've seen him kind of flame out with a lot of pretty solid teams. I know he took the Mavs all the way to the finals last year, but that can be on Luka. Right.
Look at what happened in Milwaukee, though.
Right. Once they fired him, they win a championship. Right. It's one of those times where he never seems like the guy that's going to push you over the edge, and they need the guy that's going to push them over the edge, regardless of the assets it would take to trade for a head coach. I just don't like this. A guy that's sitting at a career coaching winning percentage of .516. I just don't love this move. What are your thoughts on Jason Kidd potentially going to the Knicks, Nolan?
I like it. I think ever since Luka got traded, I think he's been thinking, I want to get out of here. Because I know that he didn't want Luka to leave. You could see in that press conference with Nico Harrison that he despises Nico with everything that he has. You know it. You could see it in his eyes. And I think, honestly, he would like New York. I think New York would like him. I don't think there'd be a reason why he wouldn't succeed there. You're saying, they have a good situation coming in. You're not wrong. Cooper Flagg, obviously the best recruit in the country, number 1 overall pick. I mean, that's huge for him. AD. Klay Thompson, he's hit or miss. He's getting pretty old. He could be good, could be bad, never know. But honestly, I'm still kind of surprised. I'm honestly very surprised that name came up. But speaking of other coach, Rajon Rondo, there's no way that came up. I heard Chris Paul too. Meta World Peace was saying he'd go coach them too, which I thought was hilarious. He commented under
if Ron Artest was the head coach of an NBA team, that would be incredible.
It'd be awesome. That would be the most gritty NBA team we've ever seen ever. He would just coach pure violence. It's all he would do, and I would love it. But I'm just surprised.
I think they'd practice in a UFC ring.
Go, bro. Let's go fight. Yeah, that's their whole practice is starting the fight. That's their entire practice. But, I mean, I'm kind of surprised. This came out of nowhere. Jason Kidd was not an option last week when, Coach Thibs got fired. Now, all of a sudden, he's the number 1 in the race. Kind of surprised. I'm surprised Michael Malone fell that far. Honestly, I still think he should be, honestly, the number 1 coach to go anywhere. I think he's the best available coach to go get. I think that even though, there was some, I guess, bad blood. Not even bad blood. I just think I can see why he got fired. But if I'm coaching Jokic, possibly the greatest center of all time, I'm gonna play him as much as I can. He is currently the best player in the NBA. I'm gonna run his minutes. If I'm gonna win games, I'm running Jokic. Yeah, he's gonna be gassed, but I'm trying to win games here. That's how it is. And I don't know if he'd fit well in New York he would fit well in New York actually with that because all of his players are already so physically demanding of themselves to play for so long. Not, Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, they have to switch out. But he'd run the same offense Thibs would. And I think that maybe under a better coach, and I think Michael Malone's a better coach than Thibs, I think it could work out. I could see why Jason Kidd would come in, but I think Michael Malone is still the number 1 option in New York. Jason Kidd wouldn't be a bad get whatsoever. But, him leaving Dallas right now would be kind of surprising. But, I mean, Jason Kidd, Ron Artest, and Tom Thibodeau are my top 3. It's heavily on Ron Artest.
I just want to stick on that Jokic conversation real quick. How high do you have him up there that you're talking about maybe the greatest center of all time?
He's already a 3-time MVP in the NBA Finals. I mean, he's done that in 10 years, 11 years? I mean, he's not a top 10 player yet, but in the center conversation, he can already be based off accolades alone, he could already be a top 3 center of all time, just based off accolades. I mean,
I don't know. There's a lot of centers out there, man.
I know. Hakeem, Shaq, Tim Duncan. I mean, there's
this guy named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar too.
He played with
Wilt
Plumbers,
Chamberlain, Bill Russell.
No, I know, but there's
Wilt
so
Chamberlain?
many. I mean, just based off accolades alone, he could honestly comparable to that and the player comp now compared to back then, you can make that argument. I'm just saying you could put him top 3. I'm not putting him top 3. I'm putting him top 5 center right now, all time. I think he's already up there. Honestly, I think he just proved himself to be a top 5 center. Historically, I think he's just that good of a center. He's averaging a triple double, Every year he's won the MVP. He won it 2 straight years. He honestly could have a 5P MVP. He should not have lost to Joel Embiid in that year. He should not have lost to Joel Embiid. He could have beat SGA this year, which I believe he did. He could have. And he could have a 5P MVP, but voter bias and voter fatigue is a real thing. So they wouldn't let that happen. And plus, he already has an NBA championship, Finals MVP. I mean, what more can you say? If he had that 5-time MVP and Finals MVP and Finals, he'd be the greatest center of all time. But he has 3. He's only saying 3 MVPs. It's kind of crazy because it's Jokic. He only has 3 MVPs, which is insane. But I mean, he could, like, his accolades alone, be a top 5 center all time. But his playing style, just the way he plays, you wouldn't even think it because just how out of shape he looks. But I could have him in my top 10 centers all time already.
I respect it.
And when he retires, he will be a top 5 to 3 center. I think he has at least another 2 MVPs in his career, and he's still in his prime. He is still a young player in his prime. He's only going to get better, hopefully, and he could honestly end up being top 3 to top 5 center of all time.
I think you could absolutely make the argument he's already top 5, but I think top 3 is a little crazy. Probably Shaq, Kareem, Wilt, definitely all of them ahead of him. Probably Hakeem ahead of him too. I don't know if you count Tim Duncan as a center, but if he is, he might be ahead of him as well.
Forward, center. He was like 6'10". I mean, he's basically a center. Just based off. I mean, it just kind of depends where you put him. I think I'd probably put him at power forward, but you can put him in the center conversation as well if you need to.
But yeah, outside of that, getting back to the New York Knicks here a little bit, you brought up a couple guys. Moses Malone was the favorite. There's a couple other names that I've heard some buzz that I think are interesting. One of them being Mark Jackson. He, of course, left. Last time he coached, he was coaching the Warriors. That one did not go well for a large number of reasons. I'm shocked his name is even back up in discussions. I think it seems you feel the same way, Jake. What are your thoughts on him being tossed around in this potential job in New York?
Hey, well, props to Mark Jackson for still getting interviews 10 years after he flamed out of the greatest dynasty we've seen in the modern era in the NBA. But I'm shocked that Mark Jackson's honestly still getting NBA head coach interviews. This is a guy that's been on the sidelines for 10 years now, but we've seen crazier things. Which one of the Van Gundys just came back to take over? Oh, Jeff's an assistant coach now, after 15 years on the sidelines. So I guess crazier things have happened. I would be absolutely shocked if Mark Jackson became the new head coach of the New York Knicks. But props to the guy for still getting interviews 10 years later. I will give him that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple guys deeper on the list. I just wanted to brush up on. Steve Nash has found his way to climbing on the list. He's a guy that I think is really interesting. He doesn't have too much coaching experience, but he was one of the smartest players of his time, and he's someone that I think could be a solid head coach. Not sure if it's really the best situation for him up there. Danny Hurley still hanging around. He hasn't officially pulled his name out of the hat there, but I don't really think he'll be going. If I had to put my money on it right now, a guy like Johnny Bryant is sticking out to me. He's currently second in the odds, only behind Jason Kidd. But he is a younger guy with a different mentality, and I feel like that's kind of what the Knicks need right now. Not some retread hire, not having to give up a bunch for a 500 coach and Jason Kidd. I think Johnny Bryant is my favorite to get the job right now.
Yeah, Johnny Bryant makes a lot of sense. Another guy, too, kind of on a similar mindset. Dave Bliss, the Oklahoma City Thunder's top assistant, kind of on that mindset of younger, non-retread coach, gives somebody new a first-time chance. And honestly, we've seen first-time head coaches be more successful probably in the past couple of years. You look at like Ime Udoka taking his first job and then going to Houston after. You look at Will Hardy kind of taking over Utah. Like some of these younger guys have really solidified themselves as rising stars in the NBA. I think the Knicks should probably follow that train more so. Another name too, James Borrego, former Hornets head coach. And the Hornets haven't been nearly as good since he left. Obviously, they weren't great when he was there, but they were over 500, which is something to be said when you're talking about Charlotte Hornets basketball. So I think that's another name too. Former Spurs assistant, could be in the mix for the Knicks. But I think kind of on that Johnny Bryant, Dave Bliss, James Borrego track is something we're going to end up seeing.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you here. Nolan, you got any wild cards you think might take this job?
It's Ron Artest, man. I'm telling you. No, I'm joking. I mean, I was just thinking in my head, Monty Williams are going back to the NBA just so I could see them be horrible just because they beat the Pistons. But, really no. Honestly, I'm still really set on Michael Malone. I really think, that's just the best guy available. I think he's just a phenomenal coach. He won an NBA championship. He has he has a few rings. I mean, or just a ring, but he's still a great coach. I think he would just be honestly probably their best fit. There might be some sleeper I'll probably hear. It'll probably end up being some random coach from like Oakland basketball or something like that. Because you never know. These head coaches always just get hired in the most random times. Like I never heard of Ime Udoka until he got drafted or selected to be the head coach for the Celtics, and then he went to Houston. He's doing good things over there. But I mean, I really don't know because there's so many coaching jobs available. There's so many people who have the capability to go coach it. I mean, obviously, I'm not the best with head coach names either. So I'd have to probably look up like a million, like all the coaches I think of right now, but it's a lot, and I'm not trying to do that. So honestly, the number one guy I'm thinking about right now is Michael Malone. I think he's the number one fit. And then Ron Artest is the number 2 guy. I think he'd be a great coach. He would do really good in New York, and he'd coach them very well. I'm being sarcastic, if you can't tell. Just Michael Malone. Michael Malone's the number 1 guy, in my opinion.
I love it. This is something that we'll keep doing breakdowns on until this head coach gets found, because it's a very interesting, potentially championship-altering kind of move. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we take a look back at college football. We talked a lot in kind of a big overview about the House settlement yesterday. Today, we're going to focus a little bit more on what it means for these schools, talk about potential solutions for problems that we foresee coming up with this new era of college sports. We'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.